Welcome to Business First Africa, where it's never just business, it's life, which is an apt description considering that part of today's show is going to be focusing on how Africa is being affected by the US-Iran conflict, particularly with regards to the Strait of Hormuz, which funnels through it about 1/5 of the world's fuel. We're also going to be looking at technological developments and a rejected bid by Starlink. Starlink was rejected from operating in Namibia, and we're going to have some words from the Minister of Information, Communication and Technology as to how that decision particularly transpired and how it came about. Kenya and Uganda have opened a new railway, and they are looking to make it 1,000 kilometers protruding into the other nation and making sure that they stabilize and, of course, capitalize on regional trade. So, lots to go through. Business First Africa is here. My name is Ashwin Berry. Haley Perry spoke to Sputnik Africa about the potential economic impact of the US-Iran conflict. And also speaking to them was Abdoulaye Idrissa, who is Nigerian and also an analyst. This footage is from Sputnik Africa.
What we do know is the following. If the war continues, there will come a point where it is going to impact our cost of fuel here in South Africa. The next time, in terms of how our fuel is adjusted for South Africans, it's adjusted on a monthly basis. And so the next time the committee meets that will determine the next petrol price increase or decrease, that is going to come through on the 1st of April. So we have got a little bit of time as South Africans to focus on the things that we can control, as you said, for consumers. And for me, that really comes down to some really simple personal finance basics. So unfortunately, even though it's simple, it's not necessarily easy, particularly when we're in the middle of the month. But the simple stuff is this. You want to make sure that you are putting money aside to help create a kind of like a financial shock absorber or buffer between you and your bank account and whatever these exogenous shocks may be, because we're not sure when it's going to happen and to what extent. Is that the Monetary Policy Committee will most certainly hold and not move interest rates, definitely won't be decreasing interest rates until they understand what the impact will be on inflation, on South African consumers' pockets. So there will definitely be a strategy of holding, waiting and seeing, and then adjusting inflation rates if they can, according to what comes down the line.
Cette fermeture va en tout cas créer en tout cas un problème par rapport à l'acheminement de certains produits et de certains en tout cas produits commerciaux qui en destination de l'Afrique. En plus de l'impact que le coût de l'énergie aura en tout cas sur l'économie globale, l'économie mondiale. Donc ce qui va également affecter certainement le plus de transport sur tous les plans. Parce que là, l'Afrique sera l'un des continents qui seront vraiment sévèrement affectés. En Afrique, il faudrait que nous soyons vraiment dans une logique de résilience, dans une logique de pragmatisme par rapport en tout cas aux conséquences à moyen et long terme de cette guerre. Parce que cette guerre aura certainement, en tout cas même si ce n'est pas dans les jours à venir, dans les mois ou les années à venir, des impacts négatifs sur notre développement, également sur le commerce international dont nous dépendons également.
Staying with the economic impacts of the Strait of Hormuz, Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, despite Dangote refinery now finding new places to do business because of the disruption in that supply, he's also warning that if things do not de-escalate soon, we could be looking at COVID-era type arrangements just to get through this. Here's Aliko Dangote.
Returned from the UK, and the world saw how he was received in that country, and part of what he said he had to do then was to open the ways for business investors across borders. So how do you think that will help you as a big investor in Africa and in the world?
Well, I think it has opened ways. Today diplomacy without the economic part of it is not complete. So I believe his own visit will open quite a lot of doors, and you can see the agreement that was signed, for actually improving our infrastructure, especially in the ports and other areas, which is almost 746 million pounds. That's quite a lot. It has not been, it's not that easy dealing with British, getting this kind of money out of them. They too, they are struggling on their own. But I think this to show confidence. It's not about the money, it's about the confidence in Nigeria. So the moment that they do that, there will be other countries that will follow suit. So it's not the 746 million. We too can do that to any other country and invest. But I think it is something to show an appreciation of Mr. President's, good work, the infrastructure he has been building. This will help and complement, but there will be other countries that will do. Germany will come, so they will line up and start coming now.
All right, sir. This is supposed to be a win-win situation. So how do you think Nigerian investors should make the best out of this?
Well, for Nigerian investor, it has shown that we can also go to the same agency and tap the resources. It means that the agency now is open for business for Nigerians, and we will go as infrastructure, as private people, to go and look for them to give us support. It's a credit agency, which we haven't really tapped those resources for a very long time. So I think with what has happened now, it shows that there is capacity for them to fund some of our projects.
So we're having a situation from part of the world, volatility and oil sector, and the effect on Nigeria and other parts of the world. What does this mean, really?
Well, it means quite a lot. We don't have much to do with it, but the world is a global village, and it definitely will affect us, unfortunately, but we pray this situation will be sorted out. It's not going to escalate. If it doesn't de-escalate, we'll end up paying, big prices. Like what I said earlier on to CNN. If you look at it today, Africa is very busy paying debt, and putting this again on top of us is going to add a lot of hardship on people, on the governments, on the people, on everybody, for something that we have no really any involvement in it. If you look at it now, when you talk about energy affects almost everything, and it's not only energy. Some people will try and take a chance and say, this is an opportunity, so let me make money, so if this thing doesn't de-escalate, it is going to keep going up and up and up. And governments cannot really now go and add salaries also. So people will really, really feel the hinge. People who are now doing, barbers, people who are doing bread, people who have industries, who have to fire their own generator. You can see in some countries today what they've done, they ask everybody to work from home, because they cannot, I think Indonesia also, they say no, only go to work 4 days a week, and they will look at the situation. If it doesn't improve, they will ask everybody not to go to work anymore. We will do like that time of COVID, where people will now go and work from home. So I pray, and we all need to pray that this thing de-escalates. If it doesn't de-escalate, normally we in Africa, we don't have any reserves. in terms of savings or in terms of this. And so people normally go out and look for money for the next day or for the even same day, some of them. If they don't work that day, they won't eat. So I think really we just need all hands on deck to pray that this thing comes to an end.
Now, let's talk about how Zimbabwe was affected. Right now, Zimbabwe has got the highest fuel prices, the highest surge in the region. When we're looking at number 2, and you'll see the graph when it pops up, there's only been an uptick of about 2%. Zimbabwe has a 30% uptick in fuel prices. So here's Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube explaining that situation, followed by Africa Good Morning correspondent Talent Gore telling us what it is exactly like on the ground in Zimbabwe.
First of all, we recognize that this is not something that we produce locally, it's imported. So if it's imported, therefore it means that we have to, then you suffer from any increases globally, and those increases have to be transmitted locally. Second, we want to ensure that there is a full supply of fuel in the country. Already we have, working with the third-party holders of fuel, we have easily 3 months of fuel in our reserves, so we're able to ride the storm if the war then lasts that long. So supply is very, very critical, and we have a good relationship with the various global suppliers, and they've assured us of supply. The third issue is on pricing, which is where you call for questions. But for us, we see things more broadly, as you can see in where I've explained. On pricing, we've worked hard to cushion our citizens. So we use the various levies and taxes and subsidies to cushion our citizens. So, for example, if you look at the recent fuel increase, if we had allowed the full impact of the diesel price globally to come through, diesel will be selling for about $2.20, but we managed to cap it at $2.05. For petrol, we took a slightly different view. In fact, what we do, we're comparing the two, petrol versus diesel. Diesel is what is mainly used by business for purposes of production or transportation, but it feeds directly into inflation. So our idea was, let's try to limit the impact of the hike in diesel prices globally on prices locally, so as to contain the potential inflationary impact of that increase in diesel. So petrol prices were allowed to rise, while diesel prices locally were constrained. So that has been our strategy in terms of cushioning our citizens. So we're using the levies, we're using the taxes and other subsidies to cushion our citizens.
Is there any possibility of trying to suspend other levies and taxes in the cost build-up of petrol so that at least we can reduce the price of fuel?
Oh yes, we continue to look at other ways to again ameliorate, to try to cap the increase in prices. I can assure you in the nation that we're doing all we can to manage the situation. And as I say, we hope that the war won't last too long, and then we'll be able to bring everything back to where it used to be. Hopefully this can happen soon. So we're very hopeful.
All right, so those were the comments from Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube. Talent, take us deep into the fuel hikes.
Yes, well, this was the Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube a day after ZERA, the Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority, announced a fuel hike on Wednesday. So Mthuli Ncube was addressing the situation on a Thursday, and ZERA announced a shock increase in fuel prices the 2nd in March, citing rising cost pressures caused by the Iran war. Diesel, whose price was fixed at $1.77 only on March 4 from $1.52 previously, is now $2.05, whilst petrol jumps from $1.71 to $2.17. Petrol was $1.56 in February. And the Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority insists that Zimbabwe has more than 3 months worth of fuel stocks to avert national shutdown. It is working with oil traders to secure alternative supply routes not affected by the ongoing Middle East conflicts. The Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority also said that cost pressures are piling up, and these require that prices be reviewed to avoid fuel shortages and arbitrage. The government added that it is intervening to cushion key sectors, noting that diesel prices could have reached around $2.20 per liter without such measures. Officials also said that steps are being taken to ensure fuel availability across the country, particularly in remote areas, with petrol trade and NOIC expected to play a key role. In a policy shift, the government has approved the importation of diesel by road with immediate effect alongside a pipeline and rail options.
Starlink wants to operate in Namibia. However, their bid was rejected. And there's been a lot of speculation with regards to the potential reason it was rejected. Why? Because people do know that Starlink brings connectivity, fast internet, particularly also to remote areas. Other people are raising surveillance issues. However, here's the Minister of Information, Communication and Technology, Emma Theophilus, clarifying the rejection.
Yes, indeed. So Starlink, the operating company, needed to actually register a Namibian sort of entity. So that is why we announced that the company registered is Starlink Internet Services Namibia, Pty Ltd, who then made the application to the regulator. And yes, in terms of 51% ownership, this should be Namibians who hold the shares. How that arrangement comes about, it's up to the particular company, whether they're donating the shares, selling the shares, it's up to the company on how they want to satisfy that requirement of 51% local or Namibian ownership. So it's up to them to do so. The idea is just that we want a company registered in Namibia under Namibian jurisdiction with majority Namibian ownership as per the Communications Act provisions. In terms of question 2, or would the chairperson like to add on question 1? No. Okay. On question 2, IUM radio, indeed this decision was taken into account with the consumer in mind. A big part of that is the criteria on competition. As we all know, competition drives the price down. It ensures that consumers benefit at the end. We also look at holistically the application in terms of public security and public safety. And that is also a big requirement to ensuring that the consumer is well looked after in consideration of an application. We fully understand that for many segments of the society as it stands now, considering the makeup of our country, such a large country, and connectivity costs are quite high because it's a largely geographically sized country with a small population. The cost of data is not where we want it to be in terms of affordability, especially for our vulnerable communities. However, we took into account that the projected amounts that Starlink provided to us in terms of, one, the once-off cost of the terminal. There's a clear indication that if you convert the money they proposed in the application to Namibian dollars, on average, you're expecting a terminal for it to be shipped to Namibia to cost around 5,000 to 6,000 Namibian dollars as a once-off cost. And then the monthly cost, when you convert the US dollars to Namibian dollars that they provided in the application, could easily average between 900 to 1,000 Namibian dollars that you need to pay for the terminal to get their unlimited internet. Of course, this is doable for many sections of our community, but it does not actually respond to the communities who might not otherwise afford the current cost of data. So we do not see that if an average Namibian or a vulnerable Namibian in rural Namibia was to invest in a Starlink terminal, the once-off 6,000 cost and the monthly cost of 1,000 on average Namibian dollars does not justify the affordability of that device for the very vulnerable communities that we want access to. We are cognizant of the fact that
So, Kenya and Uganda have officially inaugurated a new railway line which is set to ease trade between the two countries and DR Congo. Have a look at this footage from Kenya's State House.
This is the actual journey to Singapore.
Uganda is one of the biggest trading partner with Kenya. Reducing cost of transportation and facilitating the kind of trade will be so significant.
With the railway and the port, these are two communication centers that are going to make a big difference. I usually go to Luanda Kotia, to a market or between Maseno and Yala. At 4 in the morning, you can imagine the amount of goods arriving from Uganda to be sold there. And now they will come straight to Kisumu.
We are compensating over 1,000 people affected by this project. And towards Kisumu, we are compensating over 3,500. Look at that economic empowerment. We are bringing development to the people, and we are also empowering them economically.
When he says that we are going to transform Kenya and witnesses in our lifetime, events like today attest to that.
And the wananchi of Kisumu hoye! The wananchi of Kisumu power! The power! It may have delayed a bit in Narok, but today we are making sure that this transport corridor, this logistics corridor, is going to transform not just the East African community, but it is going to position Kenya and the East African region as a region for economic transformation.
Our plan is to transfer all heavy cargo to the railway.
Thank you, Mzee, for your leadership, your vision, and your steadfast commitment to the unity and integration of our region.
Now, recently, Namibia's ICT minister was part of the launch of the Creative Sport and Tourism Expo, an important amalgamation of these three industries, which is going to be happening from 2 to 4 September at the Hage Geingob Stadium. These were her words at that launch.
Of course, the CST Expo is more than just an exhibition. It's a strategic economic catalyst. It brings together tourism operators, hospitality brands, sports federations, athletes, creative entrepreneurs, production houses, investors, and policymakers such as myself under one roof. This is exactly the kind of collaboration required to unlock new opportunities and build industries that are resilient, innovative, and of course, inclusive. Through exhibitions, activations, curated discussions, and commercial networking, the CST Expo will help introduce new tourism products, stimulate partnerships, and unlock sustainable revenue models across multiple sectors that should have been under one roof. It will allow our tourism industry to diversify and move beyond traditional models, embracing experience-led tourism that speaks to modern global travelers. As the ministry responsible for ICT in the country, we also recognize the crucial role of digital platforms, storytelling, and media in shaping Namibia's international image. The creative industries including film, digital media, music, live performance, and content production have the power to turn Namibia's landscapes into global stages. Imagine desert marathons broadcasted worldwide, adventure sports competitions along our coastlines, cultural festivals that celebrate Namibian heritage and creativity, documentaries and digital campaigns that inspire travelers to experience Namibia firsthand. These are not just ideas, these are economic opportunities. The objectives of this Creative Sports Tourism Expo are aligned with Namibia's broader national development priorities. This platform aims to diversify Namibia's tourism economy by integrating the creative and sports industries into the tourism value chain, stimulate economic growth by creating a commercial meeting ground for partnerships, investments, and innovation. Support youth development and job creation through new opportunities in sports, media, entertainment, and experimental tourism. Strengthen Namibia's global destination brand by positioning the country as a hub for adventure, performance, culture, and travel. And importantly, to establish a scalable long-term platform capable of generating recurring economic impact across multiple sectors. When we have many brand Namibia discussions, we talk about how there is no really a country that can be likened to ours. We have landscapes in almost all their types in one country. But beyond that, we have the space to accommodate anything that comes our way. Also, when it comes to sport, I can't remember the source of this, Margaret, but you would know. As Namibians, we have the highest percentage of success in most of the sports codes recognized at the Olympics. We do above average when it comes to sports codes all over the world for a country of only 3 million people. We have a special offering as the Republic of Namibia. So, ladies and gentlemen, this vision is particularly important for our young people. Namibia has a talented, energetic, and creative youth population. Many young Namibians are already building careers in sports, digital media, creative production, and event management. Platforms such as CST create pathways for them to transform their passion into sustainable livelihoods. When we invest in platforms like this, we're not only building an industry or industries, we are building opportunities for the next generation. Ladies and gentlemen, this vision also resonates strongly with our national development priorities articulated in our Supper Party Manifesto and, of course, our National Development Plan number 6, which both recognize tourism, sports, and the creative industries as powerful drivers of economic diversification, youth empowerment, and inclusive growth.
Now, Namibia turned 36 on the 21st of March, and we joined the entire nation in celebrating this incredible milestone as we continue to build the land of the brave. We also showed a documentary, Brave and Building, based on a segment of this show, showcasing Namibians sharing their voices with regards to independence in Namibia. Now, for Business First Africa, we've got two creatives, two excerpts from that documentary, two creators who participate in the creative economy, sharing not just the importance of creatives right now, but to the future of Namibia. And these two are Franklin Shitaleni, poet, as well as Zulu Boy, who is a multifaceted creative as well. And these two gentlemen will be helping us sign off as we say goodbye to this episode of Business First Africa. Make sure you check us out next week, same time, same place, because it's never just business, it's life. Cheers.
So 36 years later, I'm trying to look at it from a space of the creative industry. And I think the creative industry is sort of the heartbeat of any nation, if we are fair. I just forgot the dude's name, but he spoke something in the line of, you can write the laws of the nation, allow me to write its music. Consequently, that would also mean allow me to write its poetry, allow me to write its creative nuances. And so I think we've done well. There is an industry that I think needs a bit more attention, especially there by the theater. I would dare say it's one of the most expensive to produce for, as far as film and theater. But it's also the one industry that can really propel a nation to get there. So to celebrate 36 years, celebrating it with two ideas. One, we are Namibians first before you are your individual poet, I think. You know, that's why if you go out to a sports function across the world, you don't take your preferred brand, you take the Namibian flag, because you are that before anything else. And two, we are only better people if we support each other from here. It's not a problem to belong to a group or a clique, but that takes longer, you know. So let's have this homogeneous approach to how we celebrate each other. Let's be in this position where we are able to correct each other. And if you have had the privilege of platform, extend that hand and extend that platform to others as well. So from me to you, happy 36th Independence.
Hi everybody, my name is Pina Shikulo, I'm Zulu boy. What does celebrating 36 years mean to me? For me, Namibia has been in peace and stability for the 35 years. I mean, we live in a country where we are freely allowed to express ourselves in any way, and I think that is the biggest win for me. What needs to be done for the next past years? I know the creative industry is still growing, there's still a lot to be done in the creative industry, but I'm just hoping that we grow as an industry to be at a level where we are internationally recognized. Although the government is trying to emphasize on putting funds in the creative industry, I just wish that this sector becomes one of the prior important sectors for the next many years to come. Thank you.